All right, gonna do go over the what I've seen for trends here in the White Mountains, and a little bit of the market overview for those that are unfamiliar with it here in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Um, oh, give me 1 second. It's first time doing this presentation. There we go. All right. I am Jeremy Wirths, so I'm a agent with Savvy. I do co-host properties here in the White Mountains, and I also own in the White Mountains. I love the area. I grew up in Maine, but have been here in New Hampshire for almost 6 years now. As you know, Savvy, we are over 40 strong on the team. The work that Tyler and Trish and Scott and Alana and everybody is doing is impressive, and love to see the family growing all the time. All right, gonna go over kind of what the demographics have kind of become of who's visiting the area, what the calendar looks like across the year, where I see the opportunities are in the market, and where you could best position yourself in the market. All right, so why the White Mountains? Um, White Mountain National Forest, North Conway is kind of the anchor town of the area, but the White Mountain National Forest is it's a year-round tourism destination. There are either within the limits of the national forest or in close proximity, there are 11 ski mountains. We've got over 1,200 miles of hiking trails. The um, the sorry, I was just the sorry, I was just distracted by the chat there for a minute. The yeah, the Appalachian Trail goes through. The hardest section of the Appalachian Trail is here in the White Mountains. People are always complaining about our uneven trails and the boulders and everything. We've got a strong mix of outdoor adventure, as well as relaxation options. You've got, skiing, as I mentioned. We have the Saco River that people love to go tubing down. We've got two amusement parks, with Santa's Village and Storyland. We've got here in New Hampshire, we do not have any retail tax, so a lot of people like to come here shopping. North Conway does have an outdoor outlet area, so that's always popular, as well as leaf peeping in the fall as we are rapidly approaching here. Brings people from all over the world. So current visitor demographics, there are kind of two segments that come to visit. It's either a couple friends or a couple that are coming for either a romantic getaway or a adventure weekend, whether it be again skiing, hiking, snowboarding, mountain biking, um, or it's going to be multi-generational families, or more two or more families that are vacationing, taking a trip together. It's a drivable market. For Portland, Maine's about an hour and a half away. Boston is about 2.5 hours away, and then New York City is about 4.5 hours away. depending on traffic, obviously. Um, it's recognized. One back up real quick. North Conway, in particular, as I mentioned, is the anchor town. It's recognized as being top ski and adventure town for many years now. By USA Today, actually ranked it number one ski town in the United States last year for last year's ski season. But it's also been recognized by National Geographic and the Smithsonian Magazine for not only its skiing but what it has to offer year round. Um, Outside of the couples and the families, we are seeing a lot of growth in the area for remote workers. Um, Carroll County, which is the county that North Conway is in, has had the largest growth over the last 5 years of any county in the state, and a lot of that is due to the remote work that a lot of people are now able to do. Uh, just kind of going over some of the year-round activities. Winter, as we've spoken about already, got the skiing. I will add that one of the ski mountains is Bretton Woods, and Bretton Woods is always on top 10 ski resort lists every year. Normally like two or three every year. The only other ski resort in New England that makes the list is Stowe over in Vermont. About 6 million visitors visit the White Mountains every year. And I recently saw that approximately 1 million of those 6 million come to ice and rock climb. Because again, coming from the Boston area or, New York, there's limited options for those those experiences and those routes. Um, the um, The White Mountain National Forest has the presidential mountain range that runs through it. That's what the Appalachian Trail traverses. The anchor mountain to that is Mount Washington. It's the tallest mountain in the Northeast and the second highest on the Appalachian Trail. It's also home to the world's worst weather, which also makes it a very popular destination. There was one day. There was one day in June of 2023 that there were 31 countries that were represented on the summit in one day. Um, Summertime's kind of peak season up here, like many places. School's out, people are taking family trips, going on their outdoor adventures. Um, and then springtime, springtime's mud season, as I like to call it. You've got the melting snow and then the spring rains. But people will still get out and hit the trails, hiking. People are kind of seeking some weekend getaways as well. And we're getting into peak foliage here in the fall. Um, the first 2 weeks in October, it's never set dates, but at some point within the first 2 weeks in October is always peak foliage. Um, as I mentioned, it's world renowned to area to come and capture, which what everybody hopes is bright foliage, but Mother Nature and what she's provided in the year up to that point will kind of we're at her mercy. But yeah, some of the highest ADRs in the calendar year, are actually achieved during those first 2 weeks of October because of the it's such a compressed event. We also have fairs that happen just about the same time. The Freiburg Fair, which is Freiburg's a town in Maine that is a border town to Conway. Um, it's also happens to be the largest fair in Maine. Actually, I think in Maine and New Hampshire. And so that draws 100 plus thousand people over the week that it is going on. And it's mostly that kind of that second weekend that it's happening is when the bulk of that um, the travelers go. Um, Top niches for um, STR investors in the area. Luxury cabins with amenities is going to be the big one. Um, Pet friendly, last stat I saw was that 60% of all travelers travel with their pets. So if you're not pet friendly, then you're cutting your potential, guest pool by more than in half. Um, Starting to see kind of a bifurcation in the area where the larger cabins or houses, 5 bedroom and up are, they're achieving the highest ROI. The other bedroom count would be kind of the 1 bedroom again, and maybe two depending on, price point, and what it had to offer. Excuse me, but again, going back to the demographic that visits the area, it's either, the couples or the larger families or multi-generational family. They're looking for not only whatever outdoor recreation they're coming to do for the season, but they're also wanting to be close to everything else that the area has to offer. North Conway, I mentioned the outlets, but North Conway also has a lot of little local shops. There's a lot of local restaurants, breweries in the area. Um, and yeah, so there's plenty to do outside of the just the outdoor recreation. I mentioned Mount Washington. I should have mentioned then, but there's many ways to get up Mount Washington. Um, you can hike. You can take the Cog Railway up, which is I believe it's the oldest steam-powered rail car in the country. I could be wrong on that, but it's been in existence and operating for decades. Still is in operation. There's actually one of the races that happens on Mount Washington every year is a race to see if you can beat the Cog Railway up to the summit. There's also an auto road, so should you choose to drive, you can also drive up to the summit of Mount Washington. And there's a if you do decide to drive, you can actually get a bumper sticker that says this car drove up Mount Washington, and they're all over. Um, and then eco-friendly and sustainable rentals is kind of getting popular. Adding EV chargers to your properties up here is probably, would definitely be advisable. Like I said, there's a lot of people from in the Boston area that are driving electric vehicles, even here in New Hampshire. But the amount of EV chargers, public EV chargers that are available in the North Country, there's not a lot of them currently. So to offer that amenity would definitely allow you to stand out. Top amenities in the area. I think like all mountain towns, views kind of trump everything. So that's always going to be the number one amenity. But behind that, hot tubs, saunas, fireplaces, including fire pits, outdoor fire pits. But hot tubs, um, you know, I've seen um, I've seen numbers as high as a 30% increase by adding hot tubs to the ADR in the area. I haven't pulled the numbers recently, but I did look last year. Um, I just picked 3 bedroom because it's the highest number of bedroom count in the area. So it was like 850 3 bedroom STRs available. And then I filtered out, using AirDNA, I filtered out hot tubs, and that dropped the number all the way down to 150. And then I layered on, going back to being pet friendly, I layered on pet friendly, um, and adding those two on, it dropped from 850 all the way down to 35. So the barrier to entry to kind of get to the top is it's not very high in this market like some other markets. Mentioned EV chargers, Wi-Fi, especially for those that are wanting um, the digital nomad and wants to travel. Game rooms, movie theaters are what the top properties have. Unique design, kind of like everywhere. You want to create the experience and not so much the stay anymore. Something that I'm starting to see is kind of partnering with some of the local restaurants. I mentioned there's a few breweries um, offering kind of like a brewery tour with their stay, or kind of offering that as an optional add-on. Um, would be a good way to kind of separate yourself apart. Um, it's kind of just a snapshot overview of what we covered. Year-round outdoor activities from hiking, skiing, foliage in the wintertime, rafting, or not rafting, but tubing down the Saco River, mountain biking. You've got Franconia Notch, which is the is it this one? No. I thought one of the photos had it. I guess not. Um, Franconia Notch is right on 93, just north of Lincoln and Woodstock. It's probably the most photographed area in the White Mountains. You've got there's a 10-mile loop trail. There's also Cannon Ski Mountains right there. And the views are just incredible. Kangamangas Highway. Kangamangas Highway is a 34-mile mountain pass road that connects Lincoln and Conway. I've mentioned Conway and it's kind of national attention, but Lincoln is kind of its little sister on the western side of the White Mountains, and it's again kind of your typical mountain town. Um, their last stat I heard for Lincoln, there were 42% of all housing stock in the market were rentals. So huge demand over in that area. Um, there's not as much, it's not as commercialized as Conway is, but still has plenty to offer. Um, Santa's Village, that's one of the amusement parks that we have. Clark's Bear is kind of a smaller one. There's also Storyland, which is the most popular one. And then in the wintertime in Woodstock, which is neighboring town to Lincoln and kind of a secondary market to Lincoln, they build ice castles every winter. And that's always a good sized draw for visitors during the few weeks that it's up. Um, Top amenities to add to any property is going to be a hot tub, sauna, and game room. Again, kind of the best property avatar is going to be that one, maybe two bedroom, depending on what it has to offer, and the price point, and then your 5 bedroom and up. The other thing is that I have seen some opportunities come on the market in the past where it's been a smaller bedroom count than 5, but had plenty of square footage and the ability to create an additional bedroom. That's kind of what the ultimate goal is to kind of force equity in properties. Your intro price point for 1 bedroom or a smaller 2 bedroom, you're looking at through 350. And to get into the 5 bedroom, you're 1 2 probably is a safer bet. for that 5 bedroom and up. Um, how to position, kind of you got to take advantage of the high seasons, but also, understand how how the seasonality plays into into maximizing your ROI. After the foliage drops in the middle of October, it's what I call brown season. All the leaves fall off the trees. There's snow hasn't kind of hit the ground yet. It's pretty, occupancy will drop to high 20s, low 30s during that period, typically. And then come the week between Christmas and New Year's is what I consider the unofficial beginning of ski season, because by then Mother Nature will have already delivered the white stuff, or ski mountains will have been able to produce. And then there's a good amount of families that go to the mountains, to the area for Christmas. And then ski season will have kicked off, and then it's weekends. You got a good property, you'll be booked out every weekend. There's a few long weekends in there as well, so you'll have 3 day stays. um, I'll also mention, within ski season, which typically lasts to middle of March, the last 2 weeks in February are school vacation here in New England. And half of New England has school vacation the third week in February, and the other half has it the fourth week in February. And everybody, or I shouldn't say everybody, but the majority of families go and take their ski, snowboard vacations during February vacation, and everybody goes somewhere warm, Florida, Aruba, Bahamas, during our April vacation that we have. So there are some properties where February ends up being their second or third highest revenue months because of the ADRs and the revenue that they're able to generate over those 2 weeks. Um, we've already kind of hit on families and couples and ventures. Oh, here it is right here. So this is Franconia Notch. This is Route 93. This is actually taken from a trail called Artist Bluffs. It's a short 20-minute walk to these cliffs here from the parking lot. These trails over here are trails of Cannon Ski Mountain. And then this is the ridge that I was talking about, Mounts Lafayette and Lincoln. And I mentioned Mount Washington is home of the world's worst weather. It's the reason for it is because there are 3 jet streams that converge literally over it. And the highest wind speed ever recorded on Earth was recorded there in the 1930s. It was 231 miles an hour. One of the jet streams comes up pretty much through this notch. And so the weather up here on the ridge, can get pretty close to what it is on Mount Washington. It's never as bad, but it can be pretty bad up on that ridge as well. But on the days that the weather isn't terrible, it's worth the trip up. Yeah, I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions and answers? Let's see. If you have any questions, put them in the chat for me. Oop, question answer there. All right, Rick, see your question here. How are SDR regulations in the local towns? It's a very great question. So Conway, for whatever reason, Conway has had its fair share of battles with regulation. You can look up a case, but in 2022, They tried to issue some cease and desist letters. There was actually, they tried to ban short-term rentals as a whole, and one of the prominent property owners, Scott Kudrick, took them to court. It went all the way to the New Hampshire Supreme Court, and in um, April of 23, the Supreme Court here in New Hampshire ruled in favor of Kudrick, saying that jurisdictions could not tell property owners what they could and could not do with their properties. Huge case for us and property owner rights. Um, on the heels of that, September of 23, Conway then tried to implement a 10-point life and safety checklist for short-term rentals. Well, there's a very strong advocacy group in the area. They were the ones that kind of backed Kudrick in court. They fought the town with the life and safety checklists, and ultimately, August of last year, the town announced that they were doing away with the life and safety checklist because it just wasn't, people weren't voluntarily, allowing them to come in and do their life and safety checklist. Um, one of the towns just south of there, Madison, they are currently, they had issued cease and desist letters for any STR owner that came online after March of 2022. There are 3 homeowners that have taken them to court, and they are making headway on their end there. I don't see the town of Madison being successful. Bartlett, the first town north of Conway, extremely STR friendly. It's probably my favorite town in the area. It's like I own property in that town as well, but low tax, STR friendly. Jackson, the next town north, which has Wildcat and Black Ski Mountains. You do have to go through a permitting process there, and they also do have a regulation in place where you cannot advertise your property to have a capacity of whatever your septic capacity is plus 2. So if you got a 3-bedroom, that's 6 people, you can advertise for 8. Lincoln, going over kind of to the west side, Lincoln doesn't have any regulations in place. Woodstock does not either. And then the towns north of Franconia and Notch there, you've got the town of Bethlehem. They have a permitting process. So does Carroll, and Franconia does not. So it's kind of a mix. But again, with the Supreme Court, it's gonna be hard for them to regulate. There are some towns in New Hampshire that have they've got zoning regulations. So Laconia, for example, it's right on Lake Winnipesaukee, which is probably the most popular lake in New England. They only allow short-term rentals in 2 of their zoning districts. So I think you're going to start seeing more of that application in the state, but not a straight out ban. TJ, what is the average occupancy in the area? Average is probably 50-55%. The top properties are above 60 for sure. But I would say average is low 50s. Anything else? All right, if there's no other questions. Oh, am I a realtor, TJ? Yes, I am. I am part of the Savvy team. All right, if there's no other questions, appreciate everybody for taking the time to come out and learn about the White Mountains. If you'd like to book a call with me, you can scan the QR code there, or my contact here is on the bottom.